Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Black Room. Tonight we are joined by Piper. Hi, Piper.
Hi.
How are you doing? So, quick background on how we met. At some point, I joined a Facebook group for Gunny Sacks, which was a fashion label by Jessica McClintock.
McClintock.
McClintock. There you go. Who was probably most popular around 70s into 80s. So known for kind of prairie style dresses. You would have seen her work on like the 70s show, and they tried to show the fashion of those times. And, on Stevie Nicks and a lot of places. So I was a big fan of that look. So again, for my photography, for myself personally. So, and I have a couple of vintage dresses, a few of them from that label. So if one of the models I worked with let me know about that group, so I joined the group, and that's where I ran across Piper at first. So Piper, why don't you tell us how you came to I guess be an enthusiast of that?
I think I was on Instagram one night, just scrolling, and I came across a dress, and I was like, oh my God, like I love that dress. I want to make that dress. I wish I knew how. And the journey just kind of started from there. I ended up learning that it was a Gunny Sacks dress. Well, what is that? So I had to like figure out what is Gunny Sacks, and then I was actually my first client who clued me into the Gunny Sacks sewing Facebook group, which is where you found me.
Right.
And I think you were my second or my third client.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I cut you early.
Yeah. I think you were my third. Client. So yeah, I just loved the dress, and found more styles, and I was like, holy shit, like I want these dresses. Fuck, I don't fit into these dresses. And they're so rare, and they're so tiny, and they're so expensive. So I just kind of made it a goal to figure out how to make them.
Right, and I think we both kind of had a similar issue, right? You were looking for a more size inclusive way of getting a dress, and then for me, obviously, definitely can't fit into the vintage ones, right? So that's a whole other issue, right? Even if you're talking about ready to wear in the modern sizes, that wouldn't work for obvious reasons. So, and when I saw that there was a Suez group, and for dressmakers, for people who actually knew how to make dresses, so I was like, I wonder if somebody could actually make something for me. So And that's I saw you post, and I'm like, I think that's when I messaged you. I was like, I know this might be a little weird, but and I appreciate you taking on that challenge.
Well, I loved it. I mean, I was flattered that somebody would reach out to me, you know, and commission me. And I loved that it was a challenge. You know, I wouldn't be able to work off of a a standard woman's block. You know, I had to really quickly teach myself, okay, you have to sew for everybody, you know. So it was really cool for me because it gave me a chance to really see what I could do. Um, and now you're wearing it.
Yes. So yeah, spoiler alert, I am wearing one of the two dresses I now have that you have made. So, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But I wanted to talk about your journey into making dresses or sewing. How did you?
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'm a mom, and about 3 years ago, my son was old enough to start kindergarten. Um, or not kindergarten, preschool or daycare, some one of those. He was 3. He was 3. He was old enough to go into the hands of other people. So I was also suffering from depression, and I needed something that was going to give me something to do every day, something that I would want to do every day. Um, and that would that would feel like an accomplishment. So I started I started sewing every day. Sewing was something that I've done ever since I was a little girl with my grandmother. When I would go visit, she would um, have sewing projects, and I always loved it. I loved going fabric shopping. But growing up, I never really had the focus or the direction to really take it seriously. Um, but I knew that I enjoyed sewing, so I just decided, okay, I'm just going to sew something every day and see where that takes me. And I was just kind of going off the advice that people say for writers. They're like, if you want to be a writer, you should write every day,
right. Yeah.
even if it's
Absolutely.
bad, even if like you're not in the mood. It's kind of like just a muscle that you need to keep flexing. So I just applied that to sewing, and decided that I didn't know where I was going to go with it. I knew that if I did it every day, I would go somewhere. Um, and around that time, that's when I came across the Gunny Sacks dress. I think I was I think I had already decided that I wanted to make clothes because I'd always wanted to make my own clothes. I was always cutting up fabric and like tying it on my body and like safety pinning it over my clothes and like going out that way. And my friends were like, Piper, what are you wearing? And I'm like,
A little DIY.
this amazingness. This is I thought it was really cool. But um so I
Very
think I knew
punk for sure.
sorry, what?
No, I said very punk for sure.
Yeah. Um, so I knew I wanted to go in like the garment making direction because I've always loved dresses and I always wanted to make my own clothes. So I started like browsing Instagram for inspiration, and um, I started to teach myself how to pattern draft. I knew myself, I know that I can't read a pattern. I get so frustrated. There's something about the way that they word the instructions that sends my brain like in loops, and I can't understand what they're saying. So I'm like, okay, you can't do patterns. Actually, I think I tried some patterns. I think I tried like some simplicity, real basic patterns, and I didn't like the way they fit.
Right.
Nothing would fit my body the way I liked it.
I feel like
So
that's probably a common situation where,
yeah,
well, like your commercial patterns, you end up having to alter them. I
you
mean,
really do.
I'm I'm learning how to sew myself. I have a bit of experience trying to read a pattern and make something out of it. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think
the commercial patterns, they flatter nobody, in my opinion. It's very rare that I see somebody wearing an unaltered commercial pattern garment and it just looks, you know. Um, so I started going to YouTube and I started teaching myself how to do. First, I think I started with draping. I think I started with like draping mannequins. And after the draping method, I taught myself how to do the flat pattern making. Um, I like the draping, but if your mannequin is not exactly
right.
your
That's the challenge.
shape, it's not
Right.
worth it. You've put all this work in for nothing. So once I figured that out,
Now, real quick for anybody who might not know, what
yeah,
can you define draping?
sure. Yeah, draping is when you are basically you're draping your fabric over the mannequin and you're creating your pattern that way. Usually, what you do is here. I'll grab my mannequin. Okay. So what you would do first is you would take this like really fine tape. I think it's called pattern making tape or something. I didn't have that, so I would just use like masking tape, or sometimes I would take yarn or ribbon and kind of pin it. But you would basically build your silhouette. You would draw like your neckline and your shoulder line and your waistline and anything else, princess seams. And then once you have your foundation lines, you take fabric and literally drape it over, and then you mark on the fabric your shapes with like a pen or a marker. You're essentially just tracing your pattern. You're building it on a 3D object, and it's it's really fun. But if, like I said, if this dress form does not match your body, it's not going to fit right.
Right.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And if anybody has seen like Project Runway or things like that, you might have seen people doing that.
Yeah, it's always on Project Runway. They're always draping. But so I switched over to flat patterning, which is done on paper. Essentially, you're doing everything in two-dimensional. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of drawing and erasing and trial and error. Um, I learned I learned that there's so much margin of error to try and draft something from scratch every single time. And that it's best to start with a basic block and then work off that block. So that's what I usually do.
Right. Um, um,
Hi, Elle.
that's my wife actually. Um,
Okay, I have a friend named Elle too. Well, hello.
so, at what point did you feel like, well, actually, before I do that, one thing I wanted to ask is, how do you, and you said there's a lot of trial and error. For me, I found that like incredibly frustrating where you make something and it doesn't quite, like you make a muslin or mock-up, doesn't quite fit and you have to adjust it. And it's a lot of work to kind of do that cycle. What is the, I feel like you have to have a certain like mindset or psychological approach to that to be able to sew because I feel like you have to do that a lot.
You definitely have to have patience. Um, and sewing has taught me patience. Um, I I used to go into a project with this like I'm going to get this done as fast as I can because I want that instant gratification. I want this dress and I want it now and I'm just going to like rush through it. Um, and that is when everything goes wrong, which leads to more frustration and usually an unfinished project. So I think I just learned the hard way that you have to be patient and you can't cut corners and it's going to take the time that it takes. Um, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Um, so my wife says, so we do have a saying, 7 раз отмерить, один отрежь, which roughly translates to measure 7 times, cut once. And
Yeah. Yeah. We in America we have measure twice, cut once.
yes, we took it a little farther, huh?
But yeah, you and that was a struggle for me. I have ADHD. I was undiagnosed my entire life until like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And that contributed a lot to my frustration was just this like brain that's all over the place and projects all over the place. I had to learn that I need to do one project at a time, which I usually had like 5 or 6 going on at once in different, like, not just sewing, but like other creative places.
Right.
I had to really focus in on sewing and say, okay, I'm not going to do painting. I'm not going to do music. I'm not going to really focus on photography. I'm just going to focus on sewing, focus on this one dress, this one project. And another thing is to kind of think about the process before you start it. Like if you're cooking, they always say read the whole recipe, read the whole instructions before you start. Who does that? Like
Yeah,
but
I'm terrible at reading. I'm like, just give me the one part I need right now, and I'll
yeah,
figure out
yeah.
the rest later. And
But for my purposes, I've learned that I have to kind of think through the project from start to finish and kind of anticipate where my bumps are going to be, where I'm going to have like my rough periods, and I kind of take them in chunks. Like, okay, today I'm going to work through this bump, and if I get through it and I like get over and I feel okay, then I'm going to move on to the next. But if I don't, then I'm going to let myself rest because if you don't let yourself rest, you will make a mistake. You will make a big mistake. You might have to start over. You might have to undo half the dress. Like me today, take my own advice. I forgot to do my homework and made a dress for a client. Um, It turned out beautifully. I loved it. She loved it until she realized it's the wrong length. So, and that's fine. That's fixable. There are worse mistakes. I think that's another thing that I learned with sewing is mistakes happen. You're human. You're going to fuck up. Almost everything can be corrected. You just have to just be patient and make the corrections and not make a big fuss about it, not get all like, like really upset about it. Just get out your seam ripper like I did today and just take it one stitch at a time and kind of laugh at yourself.
there's a it was one experience I had. So I was making a top, and it was almost done, and I was just trimming the seams, and I guess I wasn't careful enough, and I cut into the main fabric, which basically destroyed it. Like that's something you can't really fix. You have to redo it. And I'm like, I kind of almost like I'm giving up. But I kind of walked away from it and came back later and redid it, and it worked out. But be careful when you cut. is my advice if I can give anything.
Always check underneath, make sure that like there's nothing folded under. I've made those mistakes. Have you made a serger mistake? Do you use a serger?
Despite my name, I do not have a serger. That's like a whole different challenge. I'm like, I still have to figure out the sewing machine properly.
The serger has a little knife on it that like trims your fabric as you go. And
is that another failure point?
Yeah, that's the danger zone there.
Yeah, Piper's fantastic. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
So I wanted to kind of maybe.
What
was that?
I wasn't even seeing these comments.
Oh yeah. There should be like on the
comments.
Have you ever created clothing for children? And you have one of your own, so.
I have made my son like pajama pants. I've made him recently 3 pairs, really fast and easy, just like an elastic waistband, straight leg, super simple. I think it took me 30 minutes to make it. And the pattern, I believe I downloaded the pattern off of Etsy for like $4. I could probably come try to find that link if you guys are interested.
Okay. I always feel like kids that's a whole nother story. You're working with a lot less material.
Yes.
So, I mean, at least it's a little faster when you're sewing, but I don't know if the pattern is any easier. So.
This is going to sound bad, but I'm just not interested in making children's clothes.
Well, it's also they grow out of it so quickly. It's like
exactly like you spend all this time on it, and it's gonna get dirty. It's gonna get like torn or stained, and then they're gonna grow out of it. But recently, my son, he's 6. He's not growing as fast as like a baby or a toddler. We had fun going to the fabric store and picking out fabrics. He's really into donuts and space and butterflies on top of a couple other things. So he got to pick out all those different fabrics, and he was so excited for me to be finished with them. He couldn't wait to try each one on. So that was really fun.
I mean, I think that's cool when you can make something for your child. And but I wanted to maybe walk through your process of making a dress by using mine as an example. So I think for people who don't know what the process is, maybe that might enlighten them. And also you might maybe understand why when you commission something from somebody who does it from scratch with their hands, not fast fashion, it's not cheap, but there's a reason for that. It's labor. So yeah. So I did actually pull up my old sketches. So this is, I think, how I started the conversation is, after I approached you, is I sent you just a sketch, which is this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I loved it.
And this is what I'm wearing right now. So I can't really, see it in full length here, but So that was my approach, and it was based on some kind of like a Frankenstein of gunny sex dresses I've seen, and some I own. So what were your first thoughts, I guess, when you saw the sketch, and what's your process from there?
Well, again, this was when I was very new. You were like my third client. When I saw that sketch, I was like, holy shit. Like this is going to be some work. But I really wanted to do it. Like I really wanted the challenge. So I think the first thing my mind goes to is like, what's the hardest part about this dress? You know, and it's I'm never always correct about that. I think I thought the buttons were going to be the hardest part of that dress, but it was actually the ruffly things that
Right,
was,
which is like the
yeah.
shoulder ruffle.
Yeah, those were they were a lot more difficult construction wise than I had originally anticipated. I think you might remember when I was doing construction, I realized if I didn't line it with something, it was going to expose the back, and it was like so much lighter on the back than it was on the front, and it didn't look right. And
Right,
so I was like, okay, I have to line these things. And by the way, those are, I think it's a two spirals that I cut out. They're like spirals that get wider, like they start narrow and then they get wide. So, and it's like one spiral for the front and one spiral for the back. So that actually took a lot of fabric. Thank God, I think I ordered enough to line it. I think I ended up having to line it with the other fabric, maybe.
right.
Um, and then I realized, okay, that nice white ribbon that is on the border, I can't have the stitching marks on the other side. That's not going to look good. So I realized that I had to apply the ribbon before I joined the front to the back. Um, yeah. So there was just a whole lot. And then like figuring how I was going to attach it to, I think I think now that I have more experience, I would have done it differently. Back then, what did I do? I basically just attached it right on top of the dress.
Right.
But if I would go back and do it again, I would like put it in between two seams, like I would sandwich it in there,
Mm.
the princess seams.
Well, works either way.
Yeah.
So one step I think we kind of skipped over is actually picking the fabric. So I think I gave you like the general color, and so I don't remember, but I think you found the fabric, which is how we got to this point where we kind of
Yeah.
filled it out with the material. Um, and again, that's trying to find something that um, that had some resemblance to original dresses that were kind of using as inspiration. So how do you find those prints in that fabric?
I use Etsy like Google. I go to Etsy and I type in whatever the color is that we're looking for, and then floral print cotton fabric, and then I just start scrolling, and I'll like hit the heart button on things that I think look okay, that might work, that might work. And then once I get a few of those, I will save them and try to compile them and send it to the client and say, hey, here's my first go at a fabric search. What do you think? Half the time they're like, oh my God, I love that one. Like, let's do it. The other half of the time they're like, I mean, those are okay. Like, let's see what else we can find. And so that process just kind of goes on until the client is happy with whatever I've picked for them. Um, I never want a client to not love whatever fabric they pick, because this dress is an investment. Like I want you to be excited about it, you know? So it just kind of, it takes as long as it takes.
Right.
Yeah.
And another step in the process was, again, since you're working with, a body shape that you may have not, been used to, you did do a mock-up for us that you sent me, which is another step I do recommend for any sort of like fitted custom commissions.
Yeah, you were my first mock-up. It was your idea because you had already had a custom dress made for you, and that seamstress knew what she was doing, and she made you a mock-up, and I was like, oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean it's easier to correct mistakes in a mock-up than the final product. So
Yeah, it was very smart, and like it kind of seems like a no-brainer in hindsight. And didn't I send you like 3?
yeah, you did. I think one of them got lost in the mail, unfortunately.
That was before I even knew about priority shipping. I just sent everything like first class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we switched to priority. Yeah, and I think you sent me a couple of variations, and then but that worked out because it made it fit, it made it work.
It fit you like a glove, pretty much. Right? We didn't
Yeah,
have to make any
yeah,
adjustments.
I was surprisingly very well done.
And
Or me.
luckily, I have a roommate who is your height and your measurements, so I was able to try things on him before sending it to you. That worked out.
Yeah, and then so I'd found a couple. So a friend of mine, we did a quick photo shoot, to show the dress in in a botanical garden here in Jersey. So this is
I
one of the
love that
photos
photo shoot.
she took. Um, we got a lot of interesting looks when we went there to do this, and then she did she took a couple of videos, which I'll show real quick.
I love it.
And this is the other one. So it's one. I know you love the spinning of your, because most of your dresses I think are pretty
Yeah.
full skirts. So
Yeah.
what was that your style before you kind of discovered gunny sacks? How would you?
I would say Gunny Sacks was my first style before like I ever knew what style was. So like when I was really little, when I was like 8, this would have been my style. But I've gone through like every phase that exists out there. I don't know, like I just like wearing all kinds of things until I came back to Gunny Sacks and was like, okay, this is it. Like this is all I ever want to wear. I love the twirly skirts. I love the elements of velvet. I love just like how feminine and classic it feels, without feeling boring. I think that Jessica McClintock really nailed this delicate balance between being like modest and classic, but not being boring.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not being
Oh,
too
absolutely.
conservative.
Yeah, I think you can you can compare it to kind of, I think, because that style became a little bit trendy over the last couple of years perhaps, and you can see like the more modern brands trying to remake it. You can see some of those dresses in Target or
Target really failed.
uh, but like you compare them to Gunny Sacks, and there's no comparison. I mean, one is stylish and and the other one is just not there. And again, that's part of it is the failure of fast fashion. Part of that is just not not doing your work as a designer, I think.
Absolutely. And I think Jessica had really great designers on her staff. Um, one of them, I think, is in the Gunny Sack Sewist group. One of the
Yes,
old,
yes. She's posted a few times,
yeah.
which is pretty cool to hear. But from somebody who's there firsthand. Um,
But yeah,
so
I used to dress like a freak. Like I said, I used to tie fabric on my body, and I would
who
buy like thrift store clothes and chop them up. I would wear like one lace glove and like 3 earrings in one hole and like 2 earrings, and then none of them matched. And I like my hair was always different colors. I had like a shaved head with orange bangs at one time. I just kind of floated through style
Mhm.
and like forever until
I think a
until
lot of us evolve our styles once we figure out what is it that we like, what is it about ourselves. I think that we want to show, and yeah, I think we all eventually converge to what works for us. Um, so, and I think you started your company after you made my dress. I think that was you sort of I think started doing it on the side, and at some point I believe you made the decision to do it full time. Now,
yeah,
what
I was
what
I was PS dresses.
what made you take the plunge, and how has that gone for you?
I was a part-time manager at Joann's. Surprise, surprise. Um, and I found myself just being so excited for the next dress that I was going to make. And it was, I think, the beginning of January. My wait list just kind of exploded. I went from having, let's see, you were my third client. I think around that time, it might have been maybe a couple of weeks later. I don't know. It was sometime in January of 2021. I just got like, I don't know, 20 to 30 requests to make dresses. And I found myself just being like, how am I going to like schedule this around my work schedule? And like, I wish I could just stay home all day and make dresses. And then I thought like, well, why can't I? And so I kind of did some math and was like, I mean, I'm basically going to be making the same. Um, and I won't have to like deal with retail during a pandemic.
Right.
So I just kind of was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this my full time gig. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to retail. Like, I'm not really losing any opportunity here. Um, so yeah, I told my boss, like, hey, I have like a year's worth of dresses that people want me to make right now. I'm gonna quit. I can make those dresses.
Mm.
And she was fine with it. She didn't have any like um, hard feelings or anything like that. But she did kind of make me stay for like 2 weeks later than I wanted to, but it's fine.
So what's it been like? I think owning a small business, especially when it's kind of your primary income, I think it's scary for a lot of people. What can you share about your personal experience?
It is really scary. Um, I don't know. I don't have any words of wisdom about it. Like sometimes you kind of have to just do it, and if you fail, you fail, but at least you tried. I don't know. I mean, there were a few months where I was panicking. I think it was Christmas time that made me kind of think, oh my God, was this a mistake? Because I had I had growth from January all the way through August. I hired sewists to make dresses for me, basically. I had a few people who could make the fern dresses and the Guinevere dresses. And then I started doing the builded dresses and training them how to do that. And I just had like this steady growth where I was always busy and always passing off work. And then all of a sudden September hit and it was like no new orders. People were dropping off and I was like, what's going on? Like I'm starting to panic. And it went on until the first week of January of this year. And then all of a sudden it exploded again. And I'm like, okay. I think what happened was Christmas.
Yeah, maybe there's a seasonal aspect to it. Yeah.
We're like, oh, I should probably save my money now. I shouldn't spend like this much money on myself. Like I've got other things going on. But so I mean that was just a learning experience for me. Now I know I gotta anticipate a slow time around then. But I'm starting school, so that's gonna change everything too.
Yeah, so you want to mention anything quick about that? Because that's a big step too.
Yeah. And we can talk about that later. But that's definitely going to change things. That starts next week.
You nervous?
Yeah. Yep. I'm 37. I haven't been in a college environment since I was 19. So
Now, do you still ever get school dreams where you're like,
yeah, I sure do.
My last year of grad school was like 2004. I don't remember, something like that. And I still get dreams where I'm like, I realize I've been taking a class for a whole semester and I haven't gone once. And, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And there's a final or, I don't know why, but I keep getting those.
Thank you, Elle. That's very sweet. Yeah, I get those dreams, and I used to be a waitress a long time ago. So I still get like server dreams where I've forgotten somebody's order and it's been like hours and they're still waiting.
Do you have any horror stories from that time? I feel like everybody does.
I was a bad waitress. I was clumsy and forgetful. That ADHD was just like in full swing when I was a server. I was constantly getting yelled at by my bosses, either for forgetting shit or for not doing what I was supposed to be doing or for not being fast enough. I did spill things on people, yes.
Wow.
But it was a fun time. It was good money. It was like my early 20s, I think, when I was being a waitress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also helps to appreciate anybody who does work in the service industry, especially working
Absolutely.
for tips. People,
I have so much respect for service industry people. Even today, like when I go out to eat, I always just try to be like good to them, Yeah.
Especially since the pandemic started, there are people in that position have to deal with a lot more and paid probably less because people weren't going out as much and maybe not tipping as much. So yeah, I mean, please tip your waiters, tip them well.
Be nice to them.
Yeah. Even if your order screwed up, it's probably not the waiter, sometimes, but
unless it was me, it was probably my fault. If I was your waiter, it was me. Sorry.
But we all have bad days, and those of us, like I sit in front of a computer all day, if I make a mistake, it's whatever, program doesn't work, right? Like nobody yells at me.
Yeah.
So it's, and people, don't appreciate that, I think, sometimes. Somebody asked, I guess it's more of a question for me. I don't know the story of your dresses. So I guess I don't know the specific aspect of. I don't know. I like dresses. um, I guess, and I have a certain style. I guess I like. So obviously, not being able to buy anything off the rack for myself. Um, you know, um, Eventually, I'd sketch a lot, and at some point, I realized, hey, maybe I can find somebody who can make this for me. So yeah, and then that's how I found Piper. That's how I found a couple of amazing people who were able to do that for me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think I just I'm in general I just always found men's clothing to be boring.
So boring.
It's your choices are so limited and you know
Yes.
so
T-shirt,
narrow.
suit, tie,
Yeah.
khaki, cargo shorts. Oh,
Yeah, so I guess I was always, more interested in, other other things that I guess socially we're not supposed to wear or whatever. But for me, I feel like wear what you want, wear what makes you happy. It's not necessarily an expression of your gender. Um, you know, it's just an expression of you. Um,
I love
um,
that.
so yeah, if you have more specific questions, let me know. Um, you mentioned a couple of things that you're also doing creatively earlier, and I wanted to ask you about. So, which is photography and music. So, I want to ask about music first. Now, you all are a musician. So, what was your story there?
Um, I have always had like this bleeding heart syndrome. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always writing poetry, like really soft, sentimental poetry. And my dad was a musician, and I think he kind of inspired me to think like, okay, um, I like singing, I like writing poetry. It seems like people put these two together with a guitar, and they do a thing, and so I wanted to do that thing. Um, and when I was about 15, that's when I started learning how to play guitar. And it took me probably a couple of years to get really comfortable playing chords, and I didn't really care to learn more than that. I was much more of a singer and a songwriter than I
Right.
was like a hardcore musician. Like I had no interest in getting technical with notes and finger picking. I just wanted to know how to play the basics so that I could sing and
Accompany yourself, basically. Yeah.
exactly. Like I never aspired to be my own guitar player. I always want somebody else to play it for me. I've been in a couple of bands, and in both bands, they've been like, no, Piper, you play the guitar. I'm like, no, like you do it. I don't want to do it.
I gotta ask you: do you find singing and playing at the same time challenging? I know for some people it's natural. For
It's
me, when
natural.
I played in a band, I played bass.
Oh,
I,
cool.
I can't, I cannot sing and play at the same time. If I do one thing, the other one just stops. Like my brain is very single tracked. I guess I don't know. It's the same reason I can't play drums because I feel like my limbs can't do different things at the same time.
Yeah, I feel that. But singing and playing is natural for me. I don't know why. I can just do it. Sorry, I'm getting hot in here. I'm just gonna put my hair up.
Yeah. Uh, thank you for Jeff. Thanks for joining. Don't worry. That's my friend Jeff, who I owe my streaming to in general, because he was a streamer and he kind of encouraged me to start my own.
Oh, cool.
But he kind of joined at the good time, because his channel is all about music, particularly metal. So, how would you describe your music interests?
All over the place. I recently started to think of myself as a song person and not a band or an artist person. It's very rare that I ever get into an entire album or multiple albums from one band or one musician. I kind of just like hear a song and I'm like, okay, yeah, that was awesome. I loved that. And then I'll listen to like other stuff from the same artist and I'm like, that didn't do anything. Moving on. So
you must love consuming music digitally, I guess, if you're
I mean, it's kind of overwhelming at times, and the older I get, the more I forget what I like, honestly.
Well, how has your taste evolved over time?
Well, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed the radio. My dad, who I mentioned was a musician, we used to play these radio games where he would like just flip to a radio station and whatever song was playing, he would say, okay, like find the root note of this song, and okay, now find the fifth, and now sing the fourth, and and so like I kind of just got exposed to the 90s radio like spectrum. So that was like the oldies at the time, so 50s and 60s and 70s rock and pop, and then whatever was out in the 90s, so like Ace of Base or No Doubt. I loved Gwen
Ace of Base was a guilty pleasure of mine back in high school.
Loved Ace of Base. I still listen to Ace of Base. Gwen Stefani was like my idol in the 90s, before she like went off into deep space. And then when I think in like high school, I got into Weezer and Blink 182. And then I got into like Modest Mouse and Built to Spill and Pavement. And it was kind of just like random. Like I just went in these and then Elliott Smith happened. Okay. I found Elliott Smith when I was like 18 or 19, and he's never really left. I can't really listen to him all the time, but he's definitely my favorite artist, songwriter, musician. So yeah, like my taste pretty much just is like pop, rock, indie. I went through like an old blues phase a couple years ago where I just like consumed anything recorded like before 1950 in the blues category, and country, and like the blues country crossover that was going on back then. Like a lot of Hank Williams, a lot of Chuck Berry, like early Chuck Berry. Honestly, I feel a little burnout on music. Like these days, it takes a lot for me to like something. I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Somebody plays it for me. I'm like, I don't like it. I'm sorry. I don't like it.
I feel like it can happen when you get older and your tastes are a little bit more refined and kind of like you know what you like. And sometimes personally, like I have trouble finding what really moves me.
Yeah, I have trouble finding like anything to move me these days musically. So Piper, you're saying you are not much of a big black metal? No, no. I tried metal. Doom metal. I have found that if I am at a live doom metal show, I am happiest of all the metals.
Yeah, I'm a huge doom metal fan in general, and that's probably is kind of my more preferable area of metal. So I can understand that for sure. How would you describe your own music?
Um, so I have been told a lot that my songs sound really happy, but when you listen to the lyrics, they're really sad.
So you're the Smiths.
Not quite, but maybe. Um, I don't know. I have a really soft voice. It's almost childlike sounding. One night I was playing an open mic down the street, and there was like a upstairs and a downstairs, and I'm singing and playing downstairs, and I see these two guys like kind of come off the stairs and like look and like kind of peek at what was going on. And later on, I talked to them and they were like, "We thought you were like some 10-year-old girl playing at 11 o'clock at night at this bar." So I think I give off like this childlike innocence in
Mm,
my sound, but if you pay attention to the lyrics, they're like really fucking sad. Like I mentioned, I was depressed. I've been depressed for like a really long time. I suffer from major depressive disorder, which means just like a really long state of depression. And that has helped me with, well, songwriting has helped that. I use songwriting to kind of channel all of my feelings. So a lot of my songs are just like heavy on the feelings. But I love major chords, so
that's
it's all
interesting.
really poppy. It's all like just G, C,
Mm.
D. Um, yeah.
Well, I think my dad once told me, he's like, "Why do you always listen to this sad music?" Um, I probably I probably do find sad stuff a little bit more inspiring, or I don't know,
Mhm.
it hits me closer, I think. But yeah, I think it's an interesting um, dichotomy of having having that happier melody and your lyrics are sadder. But I mentioned the Smiths because that they certainly fit that paradigm a little bit. Um, and-
I never got into the Smiths. I didn't like Morrissey's voice, or I really don't like much from the 80s. I just don't like that like typical 80s sound. And I think it's because I was born in 85. So like I was growing up through the 90s, and the
right.
80s just kind of sounded like, oh, like this
I can
isn't.
understand that. I mean, some of it sounds dated. I do like, a bunch of 80s. I almost wish I didn't like the Smiths as much because Morrissey turned out to be a giant asshole, but
Yeah.
it is
I
what it
mean,
is.
most people do.
Mm,
I think that's another reason why I
mm,
stopped caring about musicians and bands, because the more like I looked into them, like the less I liked them. And I'm like, oh, you're a shitty person. Oh,
yeah.
it's kind of
Don't,
ruining things for
yeah.
me.
Never meet your idols, as they say. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some good people out there. Unfortunately, like Taylor Hawkins passed away recently, and I think
Yeah.
he was an example of a good dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Allegedly, supposedly. I mean, who really
well,
knows?
as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
I obviously don't I'm not party to anything, but
I
oh,
know I know Alanis approved of him first, so
yeah.
that's gotta be good.
Yeah, I loved how he seemed very cool. I don't know if you've seen like the whole Foo Fighters Dave Grohl thing with Nandy, that little like little girl who challenged him to a drum duel and all of that. She's like a viral musician. Yeah, but she was like, I think she started when she was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and he eventually invited her to play a show with them when she was like 10 or 11. So, and she plays drums. So, and you can see like, Taylor was really cool to her, at least from what you could see in the videos.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best art comes from some of the worst inner places. So if she's found a way to channel that, that's awesome.
Yeah, unfortunately that is, I think, the case. I think it's hard to create great music if you're just super happy and
Yeah.
there's no struggle in your life. You know what I mean? There's something you have to pull that emotion from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing you mentioned is photography, which you and I don't know what, if you do other photography, but I've seen your nature photography, for which you have like a separate Instagram, which I'll add to a description. And nature photography was my first love, so I love your work. So I want to get you to talk a little bit about, not just photography, but the place where you live and the place you named your company after, which is Palouse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but if anybody remembers that old background on windows where it's like a grass hills, blue sky, I guess apparently that was shot there.
I don't know if it was, but it definitely looks like it was.
I feel like I've read that it was, but
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So, and thank you, by the way. And I love your photography too. I love your spiders and leaves, and it's just very much my own taste. So I really enjoyed that. I got to know you on that level too. But so I moved out to the Palouse. You pronounced it correctly, the Palouse, in 2016.
Where did you come from prior to that?
I had come from North Carolina.
Okay. So East Coast. Okay.
East Coast, very different.
Yeah.
I've lived in other states. I've lived in Arizona and Wyoming and Colorado.
Oh, wow.
I always wanted to live in Washington State. So when my ex-husband got this job in the Palouse, I was like, okay, cool, Washington, that's where I want to go. But it's basically Idaho. It is in the middle of nowhere. It is absolutely beautiful. It is so mesmerizing. Every season is absolutely gorgeous. It's what got me into like being a hobby photographer. And I just use my cell phone, but I think about it like an artist. Like I think about the framing and the ratios and just aesthetically, like how is this going to look best and that kind of thing. But all that developed after I moved here and just kind of went driving or walking and saw flowers that I had never seen before that I didn't know existed, or these beautiful rolling hill landscapes with like the sunset coming down and like these little wheat grass things shooting up. And it was just so inspiring. It was just like, oh, you can just breathe here. It just feels so good. So I started getting, and the depression. So I was like, okay, this feels really good. I'm just going to like focus in on this thing because it feels good to look at. It feels good to do. And then it feels good to post and get like validation from other people,
Right.
So that's basically how that got started.
What's it like living there? I think me living in New Jersey, more or less suburban area here, but certainly more urban than rural, although we have, lots of farms here. But from what I see in your photos, it's a different world.
It feels like a different country. When I first moved here, I remember thinking like, I feel like I moved to a small European countryside town that I'd never heard of. The air, I remember when I first moved here, the air felt cleaner. Like it, I came from the East Coast, from the South, where everything's really humid
Right.
and kind of dirty. I didn't realize just how dirty it was until I moved here. And our water comes from like the glaciers from Canada, I think. It like
Yep.
comes down. The first time I drank the tap water here, I was like, oh my God. Now I don't like it. Now I'm fussy and I need a filter. But and when I first moved here, I was like, whoa. And then I went to like the fast food place and got like a fountain Coke. And my
Right.
first sip was like, this is the best Coke I've ever tasted because the water is so much better. And we're so high north. Is it latitude? Yeah, latitude.
Latitude, yeah.
Yeah, latitude wise, we're so far north that the seasons are like night and day is much more drastically different in the summer than the winter. So in the summertime, the sun might not set until like 9:45, but it's
Right.
going to rise at 4:15 in the morning. And then conversely, in the wintertime, I remember sitting out in my first winter here, just like staring out my window all day, depression, staring out my window all day and just watching the sun like go up here and then just kind of move across. It like plateaued and then like
Yep.
come down again at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was just like, what is going on here? I think I'm losing light. There we go. Yeah, so that took some adjustment. The people are so different. We're so isolated. The nearest like large city is an hour and a half away.
Oh, wow.
And then the next nearest is like 3.5 hours away. So we're like really, really cut off from like normal society. And so I have found that the social skills are different out here. There's just like a whole different social code. I don't know what it's like for you in New Jersey, but in North Carolina and in other places where I've lived, you just like can walk into a store and like say, hey, how's it going? How you doing? And just kind of make small talk with like random people. And I feel like out
In New
here.
Jersey, we don't talk. We just go in the store, we buy some shit, and we leave.
Okay, then maybe it's just a Southern thing.
Yeah, that is definitely more of a Southern thing.
It's just like everybody's just like they have their blinders on. Like nobody makes eye contact. Nobody waves when you're driving. Like, I don't know. I kind of just thought, well, this is a small town. It must have like those small town like charms going on. Nope.
No, interesting.
It took me so long to like to get into like whatever the social circle was here. It took, oh my God, clawing and clawing just to figure out like where are people my age and what are y'all doing? Do you guys hang out? No, you don't hang out. Let's hang out. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Is there any kind of alternative scene at all there, or?
it's like I found it. I have found it. It took me a few years to find it, honestly. We don't have like a lot of live music venues. In fact, the one place, it was called the Bayou. It was like this rundown house that a few musicians rented, and they would like have shows in the basement. Um, they just shut down and moved away. And so, like, that was our one venue. And recently, there's been this kind of like effort to make more shows happen. And I say shows, I mean like music.
Right, right.
But it's heavily metal influenced. So like
Yeah.
most of the shows are there's like a metal scene out here. Um, but there's not like
Which,
I don't know. I'm still trying to
what kind of metal?
all
If
kinds. I
I
don't
may ask.
know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know all the like nuances of metal, but I do know that there are a lot of different metal bands because um over the last few months, I think there's been like 5 different metal shows and not a lot of repeats. So there's got to be some metal kids out here. Yeah.
Or maybe it's like in Scandinavia where, there's a lot of it is pretty, rural as well, but you get these crazy metal bands coming out of it. So maybe it's just people getting bored and creating music.
I will say it's very wholesome out here. Um, that was one thing I noticed about like when I did go to like these shows that the crowd is just like it feels very wholesome. Um, and I don't know, I think I'm used to like a more like rough and tumble crowd, like a nighttime crowd. Do you know what I mean?
Right, sure.
Like the people at the bars, but they're at the band shows. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm still adjusting to it. I'm trying not to judge it. I'm trying to like assimilate and like be one. There isn't a killer death metal band of young kids in Idaho called Barn. Okay.
Jeff knows way too much about metal.
Is that Boise, Idaho, perhaps?
Yeah, he just said, yeah, they're from Boise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boise. That's like 5.5 hours away.
Yeah.
Idaho is so big. It's so big. And we're at like the top panhandle, they call it, I think.
How far are you from Canada?
I think I'm only a couple of hours from Canada.
Okay, yeah. So you're literally closer to Canada than Boise.
Yes, I am closer to Canada than Boise. Yeah. But yeah, this place is definitely unique. I'm still kind of learning its ebb and flow and how to assimilate with the locals. And I have made some really nice friends out here. And the schools are really good, which is great. There's a university in town, Washington State University. And so that kind of has created this nice little liberal arts bubble in the middle of
Okay.
like farmland.
So you do have a bit of a college scene.
Yeah.
I always find adds a good vibe to the area. Kids are usually creative and interesting.
Not these ones.
No.
I think WSU is considered a party school.
Well, state schools generally are, I guess. If it's a state
Yeah.
school, I don't know, but I went to a state school. Technically, I went to Rutgers,
Oh, okay.
which I think was, I mean, you could consider a party school, but it's one of those schools where it's so big that you can find whatever it is that you want to do. You want to party, you want to study, you want to do whatever crazy things you want to do. You'll find other people to do it with. So,
What did you study?
computer science.
Okay.
I'm a computer nerd. Yeah. So, yeah, most of my friends were engineers, but I had a lot of fun at Rutgers. I loved my time there.
That's great.
Well, I want to thank you for everything. I don't know if anybody has any. Well, we only have a couple of people right now, but please, anybody watching this, definitely please check out Piper's company, her website, which is the Palace Dress Company. It's in the description. Is the links, and I also had your Instagram link there. Her dresses are beautiful. If you like that style, I highly urge you to commission one from her. You won't regret it. It's not something you'll ever find, on a rack anywhere. And I want to thank you again for for making the dresses for me. What was that? Would you? Of course, Jeff. Yes, you would. Well, you got long hair now, so you could. Yeah, it would really suit you. Oh, here, real quick, I forgot to show the other dress you made for me.
Oh yeah.
So I'll show that real quick, which is this is from I wore this. We had a friend of mine put together a kind of a goth alternative convention here last year, so I wore this there, and yeah, this Piper once again made this totally work.
That was such a cool dress, a cool design. I love being your sewist. I also love the dress that Zizi made for you, the orange one.
Yes, the autumn dress.
She's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So I was got very lucky between you and Zizi. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was a time where you wanted to get in my list, and I was like, it's like 6 months. I don't know. I can't. Now my orders are paused until I start school. But I'll unpause them soon, probably in like a month. I just got to kind of figure out what is school gonna feel like? Like, what is it like? How much time is it really going to take from like what I could be doing for my business? And I still have like 12 orders that I'm working through right now. So hopefully next month I will have a better idea about when I can take on new orders. Oh, okay. Before we go, I don't know if you remember, but when you had creme brulee on a
Yes.
couple weeks ago, we were talking about bird sounds.
Do you have a bird sound for us? Oh no, we lost Piper. Piper, we lost you. So I'm just imagining she's making bird sounds right now. All right, I'll give it a couple minutes to see if we can get her back. Let's see. Meanwhile, let's see. Jeff, you got any other questions for? Oh wait.
You hear me?
Yeah. Okay, we got you. We lost you for a second there.
I like accidentally switched over to the computer webcam.
Okay.
I'm like, let me do my bird sound, and then now I feel silly. But I wanted to do the peacock sound.
Okay.
Because Krim did the owl, and that was really cool. I can crow like a fucking rooster. I mean,
I believe you, Jeff, but
and it was nice to meet you too, and thank you so much. So I will sign off with my peacock call that I picked up in Wales when I was 14 and walking around Cardiff Castle. I have to do it loud. You can't do it soft, so.
That sounds about right. I think you did it well.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you so much for having me, Serge. That was a lot of fun.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Piper. Thank you, everybody watching. I think the kids say like and subscribe, but I don't really care personally. Do whatever you want.
I care. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, go visit Piper's websites and Instagram.
Like and follow. I'm on the TikTok. Follow me on
Oh
TikTok.
yeah, see, I can't. TikTok was one step just too far. I can't. I don't know. I don't know what's happening there. So, but go check out her TikTok. So,
And my Instagram. Okay.
good night.
Good night. Bye.